Hello. Guess what, guys? I like big books, and I cannot lie. Hello, everyone. How's it going? My name is Brandon, and today we're going to be talking about books that I go to in case of an emergency. What kind of emergency, to be exact? Well, good thing you asked, Brandon, because let me tell you. In this case, it means whenever I feel sad or really nostalgic or just want to feel happy again, I go to some of my favorite books. Books that have left such a big impact on me and reread certain passages or even just take a really big sniff of them to feel happy again. Sniffing beloved books is perhaps one of the most therapeutic and most successful ways of getting happy again. I am pretty sure at least 75% of you can relate. Before we get started though, I also want to mention that this video is being sponsored by Simon & Schuster in celebration of the release for Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. This is really surprising because I don't really reach out for contemporary romance books anymore at this time, but I'm really excited to read this book. It's one of my most anticipated reads of the year because it's written by an Asian author and has Asian protagonists, and I'm Asian, and they're not in high school. They're like college level. Well, they're going to go into college or something like that, or they're college aged. So I'm just like, wow, finally, I get to read a contemporary book that have Asian protagonists that are in college or going to college for their freshman year, which is such a breath of fresh air if you really think about it, because a lot of why contemporary romances aren't really set in college. They're like set in their senior year in high school. But okay, that's not important. But I'm just so excited that I can finally read a book that I can relate with so much and just on so many levels, you know? So we follow these two characters, Penny and Sam. Penny is driving to Austin, Texas for her first year in college, and she strives to be a writer. She meets Sam, who works at a cafe and basically sleeps upstairs in a storage room. He only has $17 in his checking account and a dying laptop. Bro, I can relate with you on that. Hardcore. Sam is striving to be like a movie director, a famous movie director, and Sam and Penny meets in this really awkward encounter, supposedly, and they exchange numbers, and over the course of the book, they go to each other in forms of text in times of need, in times of an emergency contact. And this is really funny because I feel like a lot of us can relate with this book just because a lot of us have social media. We're either, you know, really venting about ourselves, our personal lives, our private lives to the internet most of the times, and a lot of times we meet so many awesome and amazing people that we don't see every day of our lives, but instead we just, you know, form a communication and a bond over through this expanse of social media, which I think is just incredible. So a lot of the books on here that I'm about to show you guys are like childhood favorites and books that I pretty much have only read once, but they have left such a big impact on me that sometimes I find myself going to that particular book and reading certain scenes, and again, book sniffing. So the first book I want to show you is a huge collection, the complete works to be exact, of William Shakespeare. This is the complete and unabridged works of William Shakespeare. It is freaking beautiful. It's just big and squishy. It's leather and has gold freaking pages. I remember getting this for my birthday one year, and I have read this whole book front to back at least twice, I think. And I remember just bringing it around with me everywhere. I was just afraid that people were just going to steal it because, you know, gold pages. This book just brings me so much happiness. There's so much emotional connection and memories and nostalgia that comes with this book. It's also really funny because the way it's formatted, it's like a freaking Bible. So I guess you can say like this is the Bible of William Shakespeare. But yes, this book is precious and it smells freaking ancient as well. And I'm pretty sure it's not even that old. It smells like a super old book, which I love. Alright, so the second and third box sets, The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, as well as the Lord of the Rings series, The Fellowship of the Rings. I don't really know what to call this whole series overall. I've heard different ways. I've heard people call it different things. I'm pretty sure this series is probably my most read series of any book I have ever read in my entire life. I have read these books countless times. I have listened to the audiobooks, different versions, abridged, unabridged, so many different editions, and it's perhaps one of my favorite and beloved series of all time. Every time I like take these series out, I remember my childhood reading this in the car and the stifling heat when I was at school, going to church. There's just so many memories that are associated and attached with this whole series. The movies as well, big important factor in my life, and as well as the Chronicles of Narnia. As a kid, I just love these books so much. I was able to go out into just these different worlds. And, you know, growing up, I wasn't really allowed to read Harry Potter, but I'm so glad that I read these books because my life would never be the same without them. Alright, and let us get into the single books now. The first one I want to show you guys is Air Fire by Sarah J. Maas. Yes, a Sarah J. Maas book. Okay, calm down. I started BookTube, I think, during the time after Air Fire was released. At that time when I read the series, you know, I read Throne of Glass, wasn't too impressed. Read Crown of Midnight, it was such a mind-blowing experience for me. I've never read such like a devastating cliffhanger in my life. And then when I went into this book with such high expectations, completely changed my viewpoint on this whole series overall, and I loved it so much. I also read this book at like a critical point in my life. I read this book like during a time when I was transitioning from colleges, and it was just really, it was a really stressful time for me. I read this book, completely loved it, and also during like at the end of summer too as well. So a lot of memories associated with this book, and I was just really happy reading this. It was just a completely different book aside from the series. I didn't even know about the hype about Sarah J. Maas's books until I started BookTube when Queen of Shadows like first started coming out. And that's when people like really started hyping her books, really loving it. Air Fire will forever be on top. And it's a really popular opinion because a lot of people seem not to enjoy it or like it as much, but I do, and I completely love the series. It just turned 180 degree. The next book I want to show you guys is Hopeless by Colleen Hoover. So, if you guys don't know what this book is about, it's an adult's contemporary romance books and one of the first romance contemporary books that I have read. I read this book at, I think, when I was a senior in high school, so I could relate with the characters on that level. I've never read like an adult's romance contemporary novel before, so it was really eye-opening. This book had like a really important factor in my life. I read this when I was like by myself, really lonely, and it really helped me, you know, through a lot. So I'm really thankful for that. This book had one of the best angst and broody like male characters I've ever read. Like, I was not expecting that at all. It was so intense. I was just like, whew, sometimes, you know? This book was really deep. It was super intense, emotional as well. It's about this girl who is homeschooled, and she goes to high school, you know, for the first time. And I could relate with that so well because I am also homeschooled. She goes to high school, she meets this boy, and he seems to know her from somewhere. And without spoiling anything, they try to find out what really happened back in her childhood. And it's very tragic, and it was just beautiful. I almost cried. I reread this book like several times, and it was just so beautiful for me. Those are pretty much most of my favorites, you know, go-to reads. I didn't want to be predictable in this video and being like, oh, The Raven Cycle, naming off one of my favorite books, you know, because I've mentioned those books countless times on my channel. I wanted to change it up. But these books are still my emergency go-to reads when I like just have a bad day, you know, sometimes I just pick it up, go through it, sniff it, and I'm all better again. Some honorable mentions I want to talk about. Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett. This book took place in California, and it revolves around two teenagers who are movie buffs. They coincidentally meet each other in California, and the guy surfs, and he's a security guard and drives a station wagon, and it was just such a Californian thing. It was just amazing to see like California culture. I don't even think that's even the right word phrase, but whatever, like that, like churros and everything. It was just so relatable. Just living in California and seeing that and reading it, I was just like, yes, West Coast, best coast. One of my first and early contemporary books that I've also read, Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson. It had such one of the best character developments I've ever read in a book with a single character. I think I've made like 7 bucket lists just because of this book. I read this book one summer, and it was just a completely great summer. I remember that summer just going to Washington, visiting all my cousins, and a lot of happy memories with this book. Last and not least is the To All the Boys I Loved Before duology by Jenny Han, or trilogy. Now, still have to read the third book, but the first and second book, respectively. And I remember reading these books at the end of my last semester, right before summer. So it was a great summer read. I remember reading this on the way home on the bus, just passing those hours, just on the bus reading about this Korean-American family, a bunch of girls, and I have sisters, so it was really funny to see some of their characteristics, you know, and just seeing how they acted as my sisters in these books. So it was really funny to read. So those are all my emergency contact reads. When I feel down, even looking at them, it just brings back so many memories. Even holding them up, their aura is just, you guys should let me know down in the comments below. What are some of your favorite emergency reads that make you happy, that bring you joy, that, you know, brings you up on a sad day? Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you guys all soon with a new video. Goodbye.